Hello there, I'm Aldrahill, and don't you just miss the Mongolians? The mighty horse archers, the relative freedoms afforded to women, and the horses. It's basically just the horses. So, in the spirit of the greatest horsey country in the world, I wanted to take Mongolia in HOI4 and bring them to greatness, using only cavalry and nothing else. However, base game Mongolia is, a little bit lame. And while I could have originally said Kaiserreich as a great mod for the Mongols, they actually took out the really memey paths, so instead, I go to the almighty Kaiserredux Mod. So we're going to explore the resurgence of the great Khanate of Mongolia under an unlikely leader. For more videos like this, in a variety of games, make sure to subscribe and like the video to show your support for Horsey Boys. So, if you aren't aware, Kaiserredux is all about bringing back these sillier paths from Kaiserreich after their removal. In the Kaiserreich world, an old history timeline where Germany won the first great big kerfuffle, Mongolia is ruled by the super weird Roman von Ungern Sternberg, a Russian expat. After a simple start of building some lovely industry and units, we get an all-important event. Roman von Ungern Sternberg rides against the rebel factions in Mongolia. But what will happen? Will he perish, or will he be triumphant? Or will Roman take an arrow, fall into a coma, and come out interesting? In a primordial scream that shook the heavens, Roman was reborn into something else. Straight away, the Mad Baron moves southwards, preparing to attack the warring powers of northern China. However, the perfidious Marklik attacks first. With horse archers all along the border, the new Mongolian Khanate slowly pushes against the newfound enemy, eventually breaching their lines and doing one brilliant encirclement after another. Though the sneaky boys and the Kumul Khanate try to join in the fight, horse archers win the day, and Mongolia doubles in size overnight. Ungern then realizes that his horsey boys can actually be fully replaced by irregular cavalry, which I guess is actually horse archers, I'm not sure. After a few ridiculous battles with rebel forces that occurs only through event text, Ungern Sternberg becomes something else. He becomes the reincarnation of the greatest Mongolian ever, Genghis Khan, the second. After a bunch of further unique events, some giving new generals and others reducing some malices, Roman marches further west and attacks the Alash autonomy, starting a whole new series of kerfuffles. While it initially goes kind of badly, mostly due to some mountains and some good entrenchment, his elite horsey lads finally make a breakthrough and manage to cut through the north, allowing them to snake all over the country and eat them up with no problem. Exploring the focus tree further, the great Genghis Khan gets Horsemen of the Apocalypse, giving his horses 12% bonus stats and making them almost as good as tiny light tanks. Speaking of unit stats, we have a bit of a problem with doctrines, because most doctrines only buff certain unit types, rarely giving any bonuses to all units. This means that only the mobile warfare doctrine is going to be any good, as it gives a flat 35 organization, plus a few other bonuses. The rest of the bonuses to tanks and the like are just pretty much wasted, sadly. Meanwhile, the last vestiges of independent Central Asia fall, as the Turkestan Republic meets the might of Mongolia. Turning east, the horse archers of the steppes begin to descend onto the Shangxi clique and the Qing Imperial Authority, devouring northern China as they wage their fruitless little civil wars. After this, the choice of what to do with the Chinese throne is given to the mighty Genghis, but he, of course, chooses to sit the dragon throne himself. After going through everything and conquering bits more of China, the Great Khan realizes something quite sad. He can't complete the last focus unless the Fungation government is also destroyed, but he gets no focuses to attack them. Luckily, they, for some reason, decide to attack us instead. So, after quickly moving the entire army to the north after a quick little warning we receive, we make ready for a hard fight. The attacks begin, but the enemy is nowhere to be found, so we march forward, taking land quickly, until a combined Japanese and Fungation force stop us short. This triggers the Second Sino-Japanese War, urging our cavalry fighters to push harder, encircling and capitulating Manchuria in record time. This still leaves us at war with Japan for some reason, so the horses move south, attacking Korea to push Japanese influence out of the continent forever. Thanks to the brave defenders of our ports, we stop a massive Japanese invasion by the skin of our horsey teeth, quickly moving some reserve forces to encircle the beleaguered Japanese invasion forces, until finally pushing south in earnest. Once the majority of Korea was taken, this causes a timer to start ticking down, which will eventually cause Japan to pull out of the war in a white peace, resulting in Mongolian dominance in Asia. From there, it's just the remaining Chinese powers that need crushing. All of the tiny, warring factions fall, one by one, to concerted pushes by Mongolian cavalry forces. Sneaky pushing and incredible grit allow the irregular cavalry to overwhelm the beleaguered Chinese forces, ultimately resulting in a complete victory. The nascent Mongolian state even makes a tiny little fighter design, succinctly calling it Fighter 1, to attempt to prepare to contest future air wars. However, the ultimate goal was never China. For Genghis Khan II, he only wanted one thing: to reclaim his homeland, the Russian Empire. So, in preparation, he churned out cavalry divisions, hundreds of thousands of horsey boys, readying up to spill across the Siberian steppes. Infrastructure and railway connections were built to fix the separated rail links and prepare the invasion, and troops were divided between two different field marshals. The Great Khan himself would lead the main assault force, pushing west in a straight line towards Moscow, with another leading the holding pattern across the wide front into Siberia. Just after the beginning of the Second Weltkrieg between Germany and France, Mongolia's own great struggle commences. Initially, the great Mongol hordes do well against the hastily prepared Russian troops, crushing all opposition wherever they find it. Aggressive snaking and rampant attacks break their lines, and the Russians fall back, allowing the Mongolians to attempt to shorten the longer front line by pushing to the border with Ukraine. Unfortunately, during this haphazard rush to secure territory, a group of Mongolian units brought forward to take victory points becomes not only encircled, but annihilated. Alongside this loss, the lack of stored equipment, primarily support and infantry equipment, makes the cavalry fight with fewer and fewer supplies. At a critical point, the Great Khan reduces the size of all of his divisions so as to spread the equipment out further, but it is no use. As the eastern section of Mongolian forces begin to falter against the gradually growing in strength Russians, the Great Khan realizes that this conflict would only end in defeat. The great Genghis Khan couldn't possibly lose to the Russians, could he? Perhaps the best thing instead would be one final push. Send everyone, all at once, to Moscow. Surely the horde will be victorious. With hundreds of thousands of horses bearing down on the Russians, will it be enough? No. Sadly, the horsey lads just cannot beat their early Russian tanks, especially with a total lack of air support against the surprisingly large Russian air force. So, as the units fall and the horses collapse around him, Genghis Khan II finds himself trapped in Russian lands as his beautiful nation falls apart around him. Thank you very much for watching. Though this was a sad failure, it was still a horse-tastic experience. Make sure to subscribe for a lot more videos like this, and like the video to remember our fallen horse comrades and our boy, the great Rumen Ungern Sternberg, the truest Mongolian leader who ever was. Bye-bye.